Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Final Fantasy XIV recap. There was a lot of important details we got through during the past couple streams, and I've done my best to include them all. Many long explanations have been trimmed down, and it took me a bit longer than usual, but here we are. Once again, I want to thank you all for coming by and hanging out with me on Kick and YouTube during my streams. It makes my day to see you all. If you're new and you're enjoying hanging out, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Kick, become an espresso shot today, and without further ado, let's get into it. We meet with the Admiral to discuss how to handle the threat of Leviathan. Einzar mentions that Mistbeard the pirate had lashed 2 ships together to transport his hoard of treasure, and as we need a veritable hoard of corrupted crystals to negate Leviathan's power over water, it seems our best bet at handling the overgrown sea snake. The plan works swimmingly as we take down Leviathan. Y'shtola speaks with Merylweb regarding the fact that the primals from each beast tribe have only been summoned in response to the Laminsans expanding out into their territory. The Admiral responds that her responsibility is and always will be to her people, first and foremost. That she understands the Sahagin and Kobolds both have a right to want to live and prosper, but she will defend her people should it come to their lives being impacted. Y'shtola counters that the right to live applies to everyone, including the beast tribes, and she leaves stating that nothing good can come from the current state of relations with them. We are speaking with Minfilia when we learn that the Isle of Val, home to the students of Valdecian, has been completely eradicated. A surge of power equivalent to that of Ultima was recorded shortly before the island was wiped off the map. We are shown in a separate scene Teleji Adeleji receiving word from his servant that some task has been completed. They then question what it could have possibly been for, to which Teleji responds, revolution. We are informed by Tataru that Alphino has been injured during a refugee revolt in Ul'dah, and Minfilia asks us to go and see how he fares. Once we arrive, Alphino quickly tells us he's not so grievously wounded as they seem to believe. He also explains that tensions are rising to a boiling point after the Domans were refused refuge, leading to protests that devolved into violent riots. We go to see Rauban, who can say little of what happened as they don't have the men to investigate while they're still tracking down the aggressors. Alphino decides that the Scions will do their own investigating, and he remarks on how odd it is that these destitute, poor refugees somehow had access to high-quality weapons. Our investigation finds that a merchant had been visiting all the refugee camps in Thanalan and inciting whoever he could to violence, convincing them that they could take what they need by force. When we finally track down the merchant, he panics and says he'll tell us everything if we protect him. We say we will, and are immediately proven a horrible liar as he's shot by an arrow and dies at our feet. We discuss our findings with Nanamo and Rauban in the Chamber of Rule, and it is here we learn from them that Teleji is believed to be behind the chaos, as the violence started when a band of brass blades loosed arrows into a crowd of protesting refugees. They believe he's doing it all to get his Cartano Reclamation Bill passed, a bill that would allow for the development of the Cartano Flats, where the calamity struck. This is disputed land, used only in drills for the grand companies of Eorzea and not owned by any one nation. When Alphino asks what could possibly be Teleji's reasoning for this, Nanamo and Rauban explain that Omega had been uncovered there during the calamity, an Allagan relic, not unlike the Ultima weapon, that had supposedly been intended for the defeat of Bahamut. The Reclamation Bill would give Teleji Adeleji full control over the lands, the Allagan ruins, and the Omega relic. And should that relic be restored as the Ultima weapon had been, he would have a catastrophic power at his disposal. Our meeting ends with no course of action set to stop Teleji, as we are called away to handle a matter in Gridania. As refugees fled Ul'dah during the chaos, some thought they could take up a lot within the Twelfthwood, causing the Tempered Sylphs to panic. They summoned Ramuh to attempt to protect themselves, but we cannot allow Primal to remain. We're tasked with meeting with the summoned deity, as he is less prone to the violence of the previous encounters. He mocks our request for peace, claiming that we're lying. Then the crystal gifted to us by Phrixio gleams, and he realizes that we have been trustworthy to his charges in the past. He challenges us to a trial to measure our worth, and finds us worthy of saving the forest in realms beyond, as we banish him from the realm. Urianger, who had come to witness our trial, stated that he may have had a small breakthrough in the case of the Asians. We return to the Rising Stones so he can discuss his findings. There is a lengthy cutscene of learning with the Scions as Urianger and Minfilia explain the cycle of life and death, how the primals fit into this cycle, and how the Asians avoid it. The ultimate conclusion coming down to, if we can find the proper tool, we could capture the Asian soul and destroy them. Following our meeting at the Rising Stones, we have a friendly bout with Hoary Boulder and Coultonay to inspire the young Doman children that reside in Mordona. Once it has ended, Alphino approaches us to discuss his plans on how better to handle the primal threat and lighten the workload for the Scions. He intends to create a new company, one answering to the Scions and not held by any one nation, with people from all over Eorzea filling its ranks. We accompany him to get recruits and approval from each nation. Once we have gotten the approval and the recruits, we are shown a scene of Raubahn and Nanamo discussing Alphino's new company. Raubahn believes it bold and is convinced it can further the goal of a united Eorzean front. Nanamo asks if he's not worried that a significant portion of the funding for this new company comes from the Syndicate, to which Raubahn states his trust in the Scions outweighs that concern. We are once again shown how powerless Nanamo feels to stop the wrongdoings of the Syndicate, more specifically to Legi Adelegi, as he's all but committed treason, but he's done it skirting every Uldan law that could have caught him by leaving no tangible evidence. A caravan of supplies from Kurthus to Mordona has been waylaid by heretics. We go to meet with our friend Horsefant to discuss what's happened, and see if we can track down those responsible. Our search leads us to Snowcloak, where we spot Iceheart for the first time. Snowcloak, being the impassable wall that it is, means we've hit a dead end while the houses Drillmont and Fortom search the extensive tunnel systems. We head back to the Rising Stones to celebrate the official instatement of the Crystal Braves, the new cross-national Eorzean Grand Company. Following this inauguration, we meet with Minfilia, who receives confirmation that the entire Isle of Val is gone, but that her friend Kryl has survived. She's in no fit state, but she's alive. She reiterates the likelihood of Asian involvement in the destruction of the Isle, then asks us if we've heard Hydaelyn speak to us at all since the battle with the Garleans ended, to which we reply no. Minfilia explains that neither of us has, and that bodes ill with the threat of the Asians looming over us. We are briefly shown Horsefant discussing with his men resending more supplies to Mordona, and are given a view of Ishgard, where the Holy See is shown to have a sizable army answering to the Archbishop. We also spot the Asians standing beside the Archbishop, proving that they are continuing to brew chaos wherever they please. We meet with Alphino to see if he would need any assistance, and he sends us to find Ilbert, his captain of the Crystal Braves. Ilbert explains that they've rooted out the top brass of the Garlean spies in Ul'dah. They're called the Ivy. We accompany him to meet with Raubahn to discuss particulars of the investigation. It's here we learn that the two of them grew up together, and that when Alamigo fell to the Garleans, they had gone their separate ways, Raubahn ending up in the fighting pits and winning his freedom and fortune. As Raubahn departs, we hear the admiration Ilbert has for his longtime friend. Our presence is requested at a meeting with the commander of the Ishgardian Knights Templar. We once again meet up with Horsefant, who is excited for our company once more. He's also present for the meeting as Alphino arrives not much later, followed by our new acquaintance, Sir Emmerich, the commander of the Knights Templar. He cracks the best joke about our height yet, and the meeting proceeds. Alphino argues the case of both the Garleans' impending retaliation and the Beast Tribe's summonings, stating that they will only be able to withstand the battles to come as a united Eorzean front, including Ishgard, to which Emmerich explains he cannot help as their conflict with the Durranian horde has left them with none to spare. Alphino questions why the meeting if nothing has changed, to which Emmerich explains that while he cannot change Ishgardian policy, he does have influence elsewhere, further elaborating that the recent aid to Mordona from House Fortom has resulted in calls for limitations on foreign aid, and that Emmerich can ensure that the shipments for Revenant's Toll can continue without interruption in exchange for the Scions keeping an eye on the corpse of Midgardsormr, the fallen king of the dragons. Alphino agrees, yet finds the prospect of Midgardsormr's return preposterous, regardless of what Ishgard's astrologians have divined from the stars. The meeting ends with an interruption as a Fortom knight enters with news of another attack on the delivery meant for Revenant's Toll. It's realized here that the heretics have been stealing large quantities of crystals, and we come to the assumption they plan on summoning Shiva, the patron saint of the heretics. We investigate the attack, leading us back to Snowcloak, where an entrance to the heretics' hideout is finally found. We traverse the dungeon and come face to face with Iceheart herself. She introduces herself by her given name, Ysael, and she accuses us of allowing the cycle of this war to continue by aiding Ishgard. She further explains that she herself will see it ended for the greater good of Eorzea and Hydaelyn. She uses an aetheryte to depart, and we find we cannot follow, so we exit the cave and return to discuss everything with Alphino and Minfilia. While a search for a way to follow Iceheart continues, we attend a meeting with Alphino and the leaders of the Eorzean Alliance. They discuss how the War of Succession has ended in Garlemald, with Varys Galvis taking the throne. This meaning we are running short on time before Garlemald is once again on the offensive, and Kane Senna says that the dispute over Carteneau can be placed aside to prepare themselves for further trouble with Garlemald, and that the need for Ishgard to rejoin the alliance be brought to attention once again. As the meeting adjourns, we meet with Ilberd, who has unmasked who the Ivy is and followed them to Gridania. It turns out it's Raban's second-in-command, who had been about to meet with a Garlean spy. We assist Ilberd in her capture and are hopeful that with her gone, the remaining corruption of Garlean influence in Ul'dah will wither away. Back at Revenant's Toll, Minfilia is excitedly awaiting a new face that may be able to help us track wherever Iceheart had run to. We meet Mumbrita, a Sharlayan scholar with special interest and authority on aetheryte technologies, as well as a longtime friend of Urianger. She's also been assisting in the Scions' effort of discovering a way to rid the world of the Ascians. We gather the Scions together to discuss how we can track Iceheart. Mumbrita shows the white auracite she's been studying and explains we may be able to use it to channel enough aether to get us to wherever location Iceheart may have gone. Risk of loss of our life and limb and all. The plan is successful. We arrive right before Iceheart herself with all our limbs and faculties intact. She tells us again that she only wishes to forge a lasting peace, and that we are interfering in a conflict we do not understand. She uses her own body as host to the primal Shiva, though she is still no match for us as we defeat her altered form. She calls us a blind fool, warning us that we are being used as a puppet, that the war persists based on lies. She then tells us to seek the Keeper of the Lake and see with eyes unclouded, that we should not squander Mother's gift, and as she departs, reminds us to hear, feel, and think. The cutscene also shows a new Ascian is following us, and that he will be reporting back to La Habrea, who yet lives. We report back to Haurchefant, who is beside himself with worry over our recklessness and incredibly relieved to see us in one piece. He goes with us to bring news of Shiva's defeat to Emmerich, who is also relieved and incredibly thankful for the Scion's intervention. He explains that Ishgard has never had to deal with a primal before, and that they would have lost many against Shiva. Alphino tries to use this leverage to push for Ishgard's rejoining of the Alliance, but Emmerich shuts it down once again, as they do not have the manpower. He informs us the aid from House Fortom will continue without issue, and that hopefully the Holy See will start to come around now that the threat of the primal summoning has become a reality for Ishgard. He also introduces his second-in-command, Lucia, as the best method to reach him should any need to arise. We return to the Rising Stones and discuss what happened in Kurthis, how Iceheart used her own body for her primal soul. Urianger remarks that there is likely Ascian influence. Then Minfilia mentions that based on what Iceheart said before, she also possesses the Echo, just like Minfilia and ourselves, and that it's quite possible that she's some knowledge of the origin of the Dravanian-Ishgardian War, likely from a vision granted by the Echo. And so we will be continuing on, pursuing this visitation to the Keeper of the Lake, Midgardsormr himself, wrapped around the wreckage of the Garlean flagship Agrius in the center of the lake in Mordona. And that is where we are, and where we will be continuing from this weekend, hopefully, as this ended up taking far longer than expected. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you've made it this far, why don't you tell me who your favorite Scion is and why in the comments below. Have a great day. Bye!